They themselves become the source of big misery. Sometimes the husband is harassing the wife like anything, and the wife, she doesn't know what to do. Or sometimes the wife is harassing the husband like anything, and this fellow doesn't know what to do. Or the children are misbehaving, they are getting bad name, they are not studying properly. They are creating so much problem for the parents. So what is supposed to be the source of enjoyment becomes the source of misery. So that is like the forest fire. You go into the forest thinking that you can get some valuable things and make some money out of it, but you find the forest is burning all around you. So you can't find anything valuable. You can find only ashes and dust, and you may get burnt also. So that in that way, that the very source of happiness, a man gets willingly married to a woman gets willingly married to a man, thinking that, oh, we can be happy, but they themselves make each other life miserable. So it's like forest fire. Okay.
It is said in the Shastras, Kalau Sudra Sambhava. In this age of Kali, everyone is dependent on another's mercy for the maintenance of the body. Therefore, everyone is classified as a Sudra.
Yeah. So as long as a person is dependent on somebody else's mercy for maintaining the body, then he should be considered as Shudra. Because none of others, like Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, they are not dependent on others. Brahmana is simply dependent on the Supreme Lord. He is not dependent on anybody. He is dependent on the Supreme Lord. A Kshatriya depends on his own power and valor. By his own power and valor, he can have a kingdom. He can collect taxes. He can extract taxes and he can live. A Vaishya is dependent on his power of business, the cows, the land, the nature, and then he can create wealth. But Shudra, he is dependent on Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. So, therefore, Kali is full of Shudras because they are simply dependent on others. Big Shudras, they get millions of dollars as compensation. They get company share as compensation. But what are they? Big Shudras. Then there are small Shudras. It's full of big Shudras and small Shudras. And then there are medium Shudras. That's it.
Sometimes being defeated or plundered by a superior or powerful agent, a living entity loses all his possessions. He then becomes very morose and lamenting their loss. He sometimes becomes unconscious. Sometimes he imagines a great palatial city in which he desires to live happily with his family members and riches. He thinks himself fully satisfied if this is possible. But such so-called happiness continues only for a moment.
Called Gandharvapura. Gandharvapura. It only exists in imagination. It only exists in imagination.
However, the laws of nature do not allow this. When he enters such castle, he temporarily thinks that he is very happy, even though his happiness is impermanent. His happiness may last for a few years, but because the owner of the castle has to leave the castle at the time of death, everything is eventually lost.
The
desert is heated by a scorching sunshine, and if we want to reduce the desert temperature, we need huge amounts of water, millions and millions of gallons. What effect will one drop have? Water certainly has value, but one drop of water cannot reduce the heat of the desert. In this material world, everyone is ambitious, but the heat is very scorching. What will an imaginary castle in the air do to help?
So sometimes the man and woman, they work very, very hard and they build a house. And then they think that we can live happily ever after in this house. But can they live happily ever after? No. Because when they enter the house itself will give them a lot of maintenance problem. So they will run behind plumber, they'll run behind electrician, they'll run behind painter, that person, this person, to keep repairing the house. And then they will fight with each other. I told you, don't put these tiles. It is creating so much problem. I selected another thing. You put this here. You are the one who is responsible for this. So they will fight like the very source of happiness will become the source of misery. It will become the source of misery. So whatever a person tries to make some effort in the name of getting happiness, they will all end in misery. This is the nature of material world. One should be aware of this.
Sometimes the merchant in the forest wants to climb the hills and mountains, but due to insufficient footwear, his feet are prickled by small stone fragments and with thorns on the mountain. Being pricked by them, he becomes very aggrieved. Sometimes a person who is very attached to his family becomes overwhelmed with hunger, and due to his miserable condition, he becomes furious with his family members. One may want to become very great and powerful in society, but this is like attempting to climb a hill full of thorns. Almost 99.9% of the population is unhappy in the family life, despite all the attempts being made to satisfy the family members. Even if one has sufficient money to maintain a family, the situation is such that no one is happy in family life. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness is therefore constructing a Krishna Balram temple to invite its members as well as outsiders to come and live peacefully in a spiritual atmosphere. That will help one become elevated to the transcendental world and return home back to Godhead. When one's mind is disturbed in so many ways, he satisfies himself by becoming angry with his poor wife and children. The systematic separation is better than forced separation. Forced separation cannot make anyone happy, but by mutual consent or by Vedic arrangement, one must separate from his family members at a certain age and fully depend on Krishna. This makes one's life successful.
Yeah, we discussed a little bit on this last point. But before that, this is also very common that a person has some dissatisfaction at the workplace, and then he cannot show his dissatisfaction in the workplace. So what he will do, he will come and he will fight with his wife, he will beat his children, he will beat his wife, because he cannot beat his boss. If he beat his boss, he will get fired. But he wants to beat his boss. So he cannot beat his boss. So he'll come and beat his wife, he'll come and beat his children, and he'll show his anger here. Or nowadays women are working, so they have some tension in the workplace, and they cannot show it. They bring it home, and then they put it on the husband, they put it on the children, and they make each other's life so miserable. They make each other's life so miserable. This is all commonly happening in the materialistic family life. And then they become so miserable with each other, then they start saying, oh, we have to get separated. We have to get separated. Now in devotees also this becomes so common that they get married, and then in 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, they are already asking for separation. They're saying, oh, we want to get separated. We don't want to live with each other. Why? You don't want to live with each other? Oh, he is making my life miserable. Oh, she is making my life miserable. Okay, stop mutually making each other's life miserable. Try to make each other's life Krishna conscious. Your problem is solved. Live properly. No. We want to get separate. We want to get. It's like a disease. Like a disease. It takes a lot of time and energy to sit and talk to them, counsel them, make them understand what they're doing is nonsense. They should not do it. They should simply try to become Krishna conscious. Make them read Prabhupada books. Make them try to understand what Prabhupada is saying about family life. So it's a whole effort. So then, but the other problem is, this is one side of the problem. The other side of the problem is, people have lived 20 years, 25 years, 30 years of family life, and they are still stuck like glue in family life. They don't want to get out of family life. Oh, my house, my children, my husband, my wife. What will my son do if I'm not there to advise him? As if he's going to eternally advise his son. So there's other extreme. People don't want to get out of family bondage. They want to remain in the family life. Both are wrong. To try to forcibly separate when they should live together, this is also wrong. To be forcibly together when they have to separate, that is also wrong. Both are wrong. This is also wrong, that is also wrong. So sometimes people, they celebrate 30th wedding anniversary, 40th wedding anniversary. What is there to celebrate 40th wedding anniversary? After 25 years of wedding, you should be Vanaprastha. Should be Vanaprastha. 20 years of married life means that you are already going to become Vanaprastha. But people, they become very proud. They have, in some traditions, they have 60th marriage. The man gets married to the same wife, luckily. Luckily, same wife. At the age of 60, because Sashti of the Purti. He gets married to the same wife at the age of 60. The man is very old, the woman is very old, and still they are getting married to each other. 10 years back, you are supposed to have left the home. After 10 years, you're getting married. And then they become 70-year-old. Then they have one 70-year marriage. Then they become 80-year-old. Then they have one 80-year-old marriage. So they just keep getting married till somebody dies. We are not meant to do all these things. Of course, it's not for brahmachari, it's for grahasthas. Okay.
The conditioned soul in the material forest is sometimes swallowed by a python or crust. At such time, he is left lying in the forest like a dead person, devoid of consciousness and knowledge. Sometimes other poisonous snakes bite him. Being blind to his consciousness, he falls down into a dark well of hellish life with no hope of being rescued. Sometimes, in order to have a little insignificant sex enjoyment, one searches after debauched women. In this attempt, one is insulted and chastised by the women's kinsmen. This is like going to take honey from a beehive and being attacked by the bees. Sometimes, after spending lots of money, one may acquire another woman for some extra sense of enjoyment. Unfortunately, the object of sense of enjoyment, the woman, is taken away or kidnapped by another debauchee.
So these things are happening in materialistic society, that someone is taking away someone else's wife and someone is taking away another person's, that person, he took away someone else's wife and then someone is coming and taking away that wife. So all these kind of nonsense things are happening. And sometimes it also happens in spiritual societies that this kind of unwanted behavior, it happens sometimes in spiritual societies also. But this is like getting attacked by bees, and then getting harassed in the forest.
Consequently, in this Krishna conscious movement, the devotees are forbidden to have illicit sex. Thus, they avoid so many difficulties. One should remain satisfied with one woman, being duly married. One can satisfy one's lusty desires with his wife without creating disturbance in society and being punished for doing so.
Yeah, so what Prabhupada says, one should remain satisfied with one woman. It also applies to the woman, that one should remain satisfied with one man. She should not keep thinking, oh, this man is better than that man is better than that man. Man also should not keep thinking, oh, this woman is better than that woman is better than that woman. These all nonsensical things. We should not get into all these things.
Sometimes the living entity is busy counteracting the natural disturbance of freezing cold, scorching heat, strong wind, excessive rainfall, and so forth. When he is unable to do so, he becomes very unhappy. Sometimes he is cheated in a business transaction one after another. In this way, by cheating, living entities create enmity among themselves. The Krishna conscious movement aims at creating an atmosphere of non-envy. Of course, it is not possible for everyone to become Krishna conscious, but the Krishna conscious movement can create an exemplary society wherein there is no envy.
Even if they agree to practice the basic principles of Krishna consciousness, we can try to give up most of the envy. That is, what is that? That satisfaction. That one is satisfied with what one gets. If we practice the simple theme of satisfaction, then envy can be very easily avoided. Okay, please read.
On the forest path of material existence, sometimes a person is without wealth, and due to this does not have a proper home, bed, or sitting place, nor proper family enjoyment. He therefore goes to beg money from others. But when his desires are not fulfilled by the begging, he wants to borrow or steal the property of others. Thus, he is insulted in society.
Hmm.
Due to monetary transactions, the relationship becomes very strained and end in enmity. Sometimes the husband and wife walk on the path of material progress, and to maintain their relationship, they work very hard. Sometimes, due to scarcity of money or due to the diseased conditions, they are embarrassed and almost die. My dear king, on the forest path of the material life, first a person is bereft of his father and mother, and after his death, he becomes attached to his newly born children. In this way, he wanders on the path of material progress and is eventually embarrassed. Nonetheless, no one knows how to get out of this even after the moment of death. In the
Yeah.
material,
So as long as the father and mother is there, they attach to father and mother. So when the father and mother pass away, then they get attached to their children. But then their children, they throw them out. They don't keep them. They throw them out. They say, hey, don't disturb my life, get lost. So then they're embarrassed by their children also. So continuously this is happening. That's why Prabhupada is saying, this material world, family life is simply an institution of sex. Through sex, father and mother beget children, and children get married and go down the same path of sexual life. The generation after generation, these things are going on the same way without anyone attaining liberation from the embarrassment of material life. So there is no point if we don't become Krishna conscious, or if we become Krishna conscious and don't understand these things. We may become Krishna conscious, but we may not understand these things. And still, being in Krishna consciousness, we may do these things. So then there is no point also. Unfortunately, in this age, devoid of association, age, avoid the association of liberated people and continue their stereotyped way of family life. Thus, they are embarrassed in the exchange of money and sex.
there were and many political and social heroes who have conquered enemies of equal power. Yet, due to their ignorance in believing that the land is theirs, they fight one another and lay down their lives in battle. They are not able to take up the spiritual path accepted by those in the renounced order. Although they are big heroes and political leaders, they cannot take to the path of spiritual realization.
So they have big following, they have mass following, they have so many people who like them, and they are big leaders. They have so much power, influence. Sometimes they fight with each other and they win. Like in democratic country, people are fighting elections. The politicians are fighting big elections and they are winning. The winning party becomes very happy. The losing party becomes very morose. The losing party is always trying to blame the winning party. The winning party is always trying to insult the losing party. So this way, things are going on. But neither the winning party nor the losing party cares for self-realization. They don't care for self-realization. So their life is wasted. Even if they make some religious show, that show is simply for getting some votes. So different people make different, some people say that we are for minority rights. Some people say that we are for majority rights. But they're all for what? They're all simply for getting votes in their pocket. They are neither for minority nor for majority. Every political philosophy in this material world is simply based on the sense gratification of the leader. It is not based on Krishna consciousness. The leaders are not there to engage people in Krishna consciousness and making them self-realized. Rather, they are doing everything to simply get vote. Somebody wants to showcase religion and get vote. Somebody wants to deny religion and get vote. So the fellow who is showcasing religion and the fellow who is denying religion, there's no difference between both of them. Yes, sir.
Big political leaders.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, they are like previous purport also. The solution is Krishna consciousness.
Correct.
But like for outsider, those who are not devotee, if they follow like Sattva-guna life, like is their eating habit is simple and Sattva-guna. So will they able like their life will be like less miserable?
Exactly, this is what will happen. Life will become
Less miserable?
less miserable. It will not become better.
Okay.
It will just become less miserable. Human being is not meant to live less miserable life. It's not that if I am a A-class jail, if I am in A-class jail, I am not a better person than in C-class jail. Because I am still in jail. I may boast, oh, my jail is but A-class. That is Sattva-guna. Sattva-guna is A-class jail. You are meant to be free. You are meant to be outside the jail. If you are boasting that I am in A-class jail, and if you think that is great, that means you are ignorant. It is ignorant. So, A-class jail in one way is better than C-class jail, but in another way, it is still jail. So, therefore, bringing people from C-class jail to A-class jail is simply waste of time. It is already discussed in the Vyasa Narada Samvad, the beginning of Bhagavatam. What Narada Muni says, that if a physician knows that if a particular restriction is not going to help him, he should not engage him in the restriction. Rather, he should try to cure the disease. He should try to cure the disease. He should not give some concession, because the disease is not going to get cured by giving the concession. So if people are not Krishna conscious, we should try to make them Krishna conscious. We should not put effort in bringing them to mode of goodness. It is wasted effort.
Discussing yesterday, if a person comes to mode of goodness even, then gradually he starts understanding his position. So mode of goodness becomes favorable for advancing Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, it is true. But then you have to see what is better. There are two options. One option is give them Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness will quickly bring them to mode of goodness, and then they will advance. Second is try to bring them to mode of goodness. It will take a long time. After coming to mode of goodness, they have a chance to understand Krishna consciousness. So which is better?
Giving Krishna
Give them Krishna consciousness. They'll quickly come to mode of goodness. They'll quickly come to mode of goodness. Otherwise, if you try to bring them to mode of goodness, they may just carried away by Shastriya Sangeet. And then they may say, what is these people singing Kirtan? There is no Swara, there is no Laya, there is no Tala. He is singing in A plus, and then he is beating in B minus. So they will get lost in the technicalities of A plus and B minus. So, better to give them Krishna consciousness. That's what Prabhupada says, no? That in Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says, Krishna says, don't disturb these people, they are stupid. Prabhupada says that devotees, they are more compassionate than the Lord. They take risk and go and disturb them, and then try to give them Krishna consciousness. So if they take Krishna consciousness, they will come to mode of goodness, they will transcend mode of goodness, everything will eventually happen. Yeah.
Ruji, sometimes if we try to bring the people to mode of goodness, they may say we are happy over here now, and they may.
That's what I told now. They'll sit and then they listen to music. They'll keep calling dogs. Wow, wow. life will go in that. It's all very risky.
You had mentioned about that separation. Prabhupada is mentioning about separation and post-separation and all. So in that, like what usually we say that we should make Krishna conscious. Now, I have one like doubt about how that is happening. The previous generation was not so Krishna conscious in one sense.
Correct, yeah.
They are in a materialistic varnashram situation,
Yeah.
whatever varnashram, whether we call it or whatever setting, grahastha setting, grahmedi setting, something. And they also fight. And there is no superior who tells them that you be Krishna conscious, family that prays together, stays together, nothing like that. But they stay together. And they may be fighting and enjoying sense gratification, whatever, and trying to enjoy, and then they remain. So what exactly changed that a person who is trying to be Krishna conscious, apparently, he is not able to fight that much also, that he remains in that platform and makes a divorce? What has changed so much actually?
Culture has changed. So there is culture and there is Krishna consciousness. Okay. You can't separate each other. Okay. Now the biggest mistake in ISKCON, what we are doing is, we are thinking that culture has got nothing to do with Krishna consciousness. We are thinking culture is mundane and Krishna consciousness is transcendental. But if you actually read in 4th canto, in Dhruva Maharaj purport, Prabhupada is actually saying the another name of Bhagavata Dharma is Varnashrama Dharma. The sentence is there. So, Varnashrama Dharma without Krishna consciousness is West. Tektva Swadharmam Charanam Bhujam Harer Bhajan Napakvo Atapate Tato Yedi Yatra Kvava Badram Abuddha Mushyakim Kovarta Apto Abhajatam Swadharmataha. Already there. Varnashram without Krishna consciousness is waste. But if you try to practice Krishna consciousness immaturely without Varnashram, then that will also be not very successful. That is why Prabhupada said 50% of his mission is to establish Varnashram. In the beginning of ISKCON, Prabhupada tried it. Only pure devotional service, no Varnashram. But he understood that these people are not, we are not fit for it. We are not fit for it. We need culture to practice Krishna consciousness properly. Otherwise, the person will be ecstasy in Kirtan and then he will be the third husband of the fourth wife. What is the use? Because he has not given up the shackle of sex life. So, if we are under illusion that we need not give up the shackle of sex life, but if we enthusiastically dance in Kirtan and we'll somehow or other go back to Godhead, it's all not going to happen. So, what changed is that we are trying to disassociate the culture from Krishna consciousness, which we cannot. Bhagavatam has a certain culture. So that's a package. You accept the Krishna consciousness, you accept the culture. Then at the right time, only Krishna consciousness will remain and you will be able to sustain in that only Krishna consciousness. But prematurely, if you try to give up the culture and then say, I am transcendental, you will not be able to be transcendental. That's why we have Brahmacharya Ashram. Why to have Brahmacharya Ashram? Why should we have Brahmacharya Ashram? We could just give all of you one gamcha and then ask all of you to be pure devotees like Babaji's. Right? Correct? Everybody will be supplied with 2 gamcha and everybody will be called Babaji. Why we are not doing it? Because we cannot live with gamcha. We need yellow dress, white dress, saffron dress, we need some rules and regulation to go from how to go from yellow to white, how to go from white to saffron, and then how to go back from saffron to white. For everything, we need rules and regulation. We need rules and regulation. And that is the culture. That's the culture part. If you are a brahmachari, you behave like this, you act like this, you do like this, the culture part. When you break that culture, then there will be disaster. So therefore, that's what happened. That we try to dissociate culture from Krishna consciousness, and then we are dealing with disasters.
Prabhuji, I fully appreciate that. Like what Srila Prabhupada did in the hippie situation was, he gave them Harinam and all.
But he also gave them culture.
No, he gave them culture. But what I'm asking
I
is
know,
the strength
I
for
know,
following culture should
No,
come from.
no, one second. I know proper disciple Mataji's, one Mataji, she's very old. She lives in Mayapur. My wife asked her, Mataji, you are so old. Why do you still cover your head? You know what answer she gave? She said, because it pleases Prabhupada. So many Indian women who's supposed to be in culture, they don't cover their head. They don't cover their head. But this foreigner lady, who is supposed to be hippie, she was picked up by Prabhupada. She was taught culture in Krishna consciousness. And today she is old. She is old enough that she doesn't have to care the way she dresses. But still she diligently she covers her head. And then she does it. When you ask her, why do you do it? She says, it pleases Prabhupada. So Prabhupada taught them Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada taught them culture.
Prabhuji, fully agreed. What I'm trying to ask is that, that Prabhupada gave them the Krishna consciousness, the core, the direct processes, which gave them also strength to follow such cultural habits. Because they were coming from a completely uncultured.
Correct.
So Krishna conscious, the core process like Harinam, Bhagavatam, has the potency to offer strength to the jiva, to rise to sattva, rise to cultural habits which are varnashram, and then he should follow varnashram. But someone who knows varnashram setting, like in India also, a devotee who is there, he knows varnashram setting in one sense, and he is following Krishna. He should get the strength to follow that varnashram rather than going toward the other direction.
Correct. But you cannot deliberately play with Maya. That's where culture is coming. See, culture not only gives you the strength, but it also gives you the sensibility. What you can do and what you cannot do. It makes you sensible. Right? When there is no culture, that the sensibility is lost. When sensibility is lost, then you try to do things which you're not supposed to do. That means you're playing with Maya. That's what happens. You can't say that I will play with Maya and Krishna is supposed to protect me. So Krishna's protection is that he burns you with Maya. That is Krishna's protection. Then you understand that I'm not supposed to play with Maya. Then you understand, oh, I'm not supposed to play with Maya. Maya burns. But if culture is there, that sensibility becomes part of that culture. Oh, I'm not supposed to play with Maya.
So Prabhuji, as we are trying to preach Krishna consciousness, while the world is going more and more haywire in the cultural aspects, so we want to teach culture also. And there will be more and more anomalies coming in the world. So people's sense of fidelity to the culture may become weaker and weaker. And we are trying to give them the strength by Krishna consciousness only. So what extra measure we should take that things will come back to some norm, at least for the within the ISKCON, rather than getting lost to the.
So that's why that's the extra measure is Varnashram. See, that's what exactly Prabhupada said, that 50% of my mission is unfinished. So Prabhupada already identified that Varnashram should be implemented within ISKCON. So now everybody has an opinion of how to implement Varnashram. That's okay. We should debate that opinion and we should do it and we should see. But we should do it. You can't keep postponing. Okay, one generation thinks next generation will do it. The next generation thinks next generation will do it. If you don't follow the instruction of the Acharya, then you're bound to fail. So literally one generation has gone, but nothing substantial has been done. I'm not saying nothing done, but nothing substantial has been done to understand and implement Varnashram. Now, we are the second generation. Our time is coming. We should do it. Otherwise, it will be a opportunity missed for us also. We should think about it seriously. We should see how to implement Varnashram in different ways, like how to implement in city, how to implement in village. It can be implemented because even in Vedic times, city was there. It's not that there was no city, only village was there. And it was not that in village Varnashram was there, city Varnashram was not there. It's not like that. In Vedic times, there were cities, there were towns, there were villages, there were hamlets, everything was there. The forest, everything was there. So we have to put our minds together. Interested people should discuss that how the principles of Varnashram can be applied in different settings, in city setting, in village setting, in a farm setting, how different things can be, how it can be implemented, and how they can be synergized. Everything can be synergized. These are all discussions which should take place. That's what we should do.
Another question. Here we see so many difficulties that a person faces in a household life. So materialistic household life, which is Grahmedi life, is worse than in the case of a proper Grahastha also. The nature of the other people will not change. Means they will have envious nature. He has to face politicians. He has to face office people. So I of course don't really deal with counseling people, but what is the basic understanding that they have in, like, do they fight the war to live against the wrong actions of the other people? Because that is endless right now. Or do they become detached and understand misery is, this is the nature of what the Grihastha life, tolerate it, rise to transcendence? How do they handle it? Actually?
Generally, we should take the second route. Prabhupada says that this material world is like a hurricane. The material existence is like a hurricane. So the devotee should not get carried away in the hurricane of material existence. Rather, he should be a witness to this hurricane. So many things will happen in this material world. Very nature of material world is like this. We should not get disturbed by those things. We should try to focus in our Krishna consciousness, in how to become Krishna conscious, how to make others who are conducive to receive Krishna consciousness from us, how to give Krishna consciousness to them. So this is what we should worry about. That should be our business. Our business is to save ourselves and save others who are ready to get saved.
Trying to be on the inaction side, it may become a concern for the person in terms of they may exploit the person.
No. We don't have to allow ourselves to exploitation, but we don't also have to run the rat race. Okay. So one is you run the rat race. The other is that you allow yourself to be exploited. There's two extremes, but there is also a mid path that don't run the rat race. Don't allow yourself to be exploited. You just do whatever minimum has to be done and be satisfied with what comes. And then you lead a proper Krishna conscious life. That's possible. That's possible. What happens, what complication comes in household life? The complication is when people try to do prayasa, means when they take up goals which are very difficult to fulfill, then household life becomes miserable. Like a person is having moderate income, he can practice Krishna consciousness, he can maintain his children, and then they can practice Krishna consciousness, and they can live happily, and they can go back home, back to God. Suppose he starts thinking, I should send my son to America and educate him. Okay. And if his son, unfortunately, is not able to get any scholarship in America, if he tries to raise that money and try to send him to America and educate him, he's going to make his life miserable. He's going to become prayasa. Right? So As long as a householder does not engage in prayasa, then things are all right. The moment the householder tries to engage in prayasa, then his life is spoiled. Life is spoiled. That's what happens. Yeah. Yes, sir.
For this question, that like in general, the divorce is not recommended, no? Generally.
No, it
So-
doesn't exist. It's not a question of recommending or not recommending.
Mhm.
First of all, it has to exist. Then you can say, I can recommend it, I don't recommend it.
Yeah.
Can you recommend horse's egg?
It does not exist.
Why don't you recommend it? Or can you say, I don't recommend you to take horse's egg? Can you say like that? I don't recommend you to consume horse's egg. Can you say like that? You cannot say like that. Why?
Because it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. So there's no question of recommending or not recommending. It doesn't arise because it doesn't exist. It's as simple as that.
But now the question is, Guruji, when there is a conflict between husband and wife,
Yeah.
it may be due to the level of their consciousness. No,
Correct.
one may be Krishna, one may not. So they
Even
are
both of them are Krishna conscious, they can also fight.
yeah. So this staying together in a married life,
Yeah.
this is in a cultural setting,
Okay.
Varnashram platform.
Yeah.
Now when the like one of them or like they feel that remaining with the other person
Yeah.
is a barrier to my Krishna consciousness.
Okay.
Or it's not, I'm not able to practice Krishna consciousness. So still in that setting, they should go on together with even with the difficulty. And how should they handle the situation?
So it depends on what you have to define. Being with this person is a barrier for my Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
How does that, what is the basis of the thought process? I like this person's kirtan and this person like that person's kirtan. So being with this person is a barrier for my Krishna consciousness. This is nonsense. Okay. He likes that person's kirtan, let him put a earphone and hear that person's kirtan. You like person kirtan, you buy some earphone with noise cancellation and put it in your ear and hear kirtan. What is the problem? Solved. This is not some reason for divorce.
Now, when it comes to some extreme, means in terms of
What is the extreme? Define an extreme. See, everything has to be tangibly defined.
yeah.
You cannot give an intangible word and then act on it.
Maybe
Give a tangible definition.
yeah. For example, the husband doesn't want the wife to chant. He doesn't. He cannot tolerate anything of the Krishna consciousness.
So you said both of them are devotees.
No, the situation is that husband is not a devotee and he doesn't want the wife to be anything connected with Krishna consciousness.
But she can cheat him and chant.
Yeah, that.
So then she should just cheat him and chant and still remain with him. She should blatantly cheat him and chant her 16 rounds and remain with him. So he doesn't know that she's chanting. What is the problem?
Mother-in-law problem is there, father-in-law, like something at the home. So what this will do?
What is that?
Saas, Sasur, mother-in-law, father-in-law.
You have mother-in-law, father-in-law
No,
problem.
no,
at home.
like at home, they have na.
They have problem.
They fight with mother-in-law sometimes. And the son is supporting to, and the mother-in-law is not a devotee. She is not devotee and she is giving trouble to the wife. So, and husband is also not listening. In that case, what this will do?
See, if she can tolerate this and practice Krishna consciousness in this setting, then she should tolerate. Most of the time, what is the mother-in-law and father-in-law fight? See, because I deal with these things day in and day out. Okay, so one woman, one god sister of mine, wrote to my spiritual master, I want to get separated from my husband because my mother-in-law is torturing me. And my husband, who is also a devotee, is stopping me from studying Bhakti Shastri. Now, is it legitimate reason to get separated? It looks very legitimate. Mother-in-law is torturing, husband who is supposed to be devotee, he is not allowing her to study Bhakti Shastri also. So she is saying, I want to be separated from my husband. So my spiritual master wrote, I am a sannyasi, I don't get involved in these things. I asked my senior disciple, Harilila Das, to deal with you. So he sent the case to me. I told my wife, talk to the lady. What is the story? The story comes out that she wants to study Bhakti Shastri from morning 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Morning 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock. When the husband has to go to office, when she has to cook for the husband, when the whole family is busy, she wants to become ecstatic between 7 o'clock and 9 o'clock only. My wife told her, मैं आके तुमको चप्पल से मारूंगी. At least your mother-in-law is fighting with you. Your husband is telling you that you should not do Bhakti Shastri. If you come to me, I'll hit you with chappal. You are a woman. You don't know what woman's duty is. So, first of all, we need to get into the details of the problem. You understand? Why the husband is supporting the non-devotee mother? Okay? It's not that non-devotee mother means demon. She has two horns and then she has two long teeth and she has fiery eyes and then she is trying to eat the flesh of the daughter-in-law. It's not correct. It's not correct. You have to get into the details. The devil lies in the detail. So if you get into the detail, you will see whether genuinely if the wife is having a problem with the mother-in-law and the husband.
Prabhu, there is no voice. There is no voice. We cannot hear.
He's saying that they are torturing. It is culture. She is not used to it, but she is married into a house which has that culture. She is supposed to learn that culture. You understand? So I am not saying that always mother-in-laws are right and daughter-in-laws are wrong. I am not mother-in-law support society. Okay. But I am saying that everything should be studied. That what is the problem? Whether the problem is with the mother-in-law or the daughter-in-law or the man, and we should try to resolve it by dialogue. Problem, separation, problem, separation. This is not the solution. Not the solution. That's the point.
Bhuji, in another question, in city life, how we should practice Varnashram Dharma?
It's a big topic, but I'll give you a short answer. Pune is city or it's not a city? Pune is city. Does the temple have brahmachari ashram? How many brahmacharis are there? How many are there? 150 plus brahmacharis are there. In city, hey, how are you practicing Varnashram in city? Pune is a city. If we cannot practice Varnashram in city, there should be no Brahmacharya ashram in this temple. How come this temple is having Brahmacharya ashram and 150 Brahmacharis are there? You see? It's possible. Brahmacharya ashram is an aspect of Varnashram. So Pune is a city. In Pune, there is Brahmacharya ashram. That means there is possibility of practicing Varnashram. Yeah? As simple as that. As simple as that. It's not very difficult. All the details may not be possible in all the places, but all the principles are possible in every place.
Or the congregation devotees.
They are grahasthas, no? Congregation means what? Congregation means what?
Married devotees, they were staying outside.
Yeah, so they are
Grahasthas.
grahasthas, no? So they should follow grahastha dharma. So just because they are staying outside doesn't mean that they should not follow grahastha dharma. Is it like that? They can follow grahastha dharma, right? They can give charity. They can maintain their dependence. Are they not doing like grahasthas give donation here to the temple? They don't give? Giving, no? Grahasthas are giving donation to temple. So they are maintaining brahmacharis and sannyasis, right? And are they chanting? They're chanting. Huh? Are they following regulatory principles? So they are doing something. They're doing something. So principles are possible everywhere. Details are not possible everywhere. If you ask a devotee who wants to be a Brahmana, that you go and collect grains from the marketplace and you should live with that only, it's not possible. It's not possible. But if you ask a devotee who wants to be a Brahmana, that you simply live by Patana, Patana, Yajana, Yajana, Dana, Pratigraha, it's possible. It's possible. I know devotees who are grahasthas who live like that. They simply engage in these activities and then they are maintaining their grahastha life. It is austere, it is simple, or sometimes it is not so austere also. If Krishna wants to give them a lot of money, they get a lot of money. It's okay. Like I know young boys in Mayapur who do service in the temple, get some very meager maintenance, and they teach Mridanga online, they teach music online, and then they make some money out of it. They get some dakshina out of it, and then they maintain their family life. Very nicely, they maintain their family life. They're not working in some big company or corporate, and Mayapur temple doesn't give them some market level maintenance or something like that. It gives them some few thousand rupees. Most of the time it is less than 10,000. They take that money, they do some service, and that service is also not like 1 hour, 2 hour service. They do proper 6 to 8 hours of service. Then they also do some online classes. That this they maintain themselves. Very Brahminical way of living. The man and woman have to agree to live like this. See, this is the most important thing. Not everybody can do it, but there are people who are doing it. So it's not impossible. It just, if there's a trained man and there's a trained woman, then they can do it. That's it. Like there are girls I know in Mayapur who are who can get married and go out of Mayapur and they can live very comfortably, but they don't want to leave Mayapur. They attach to deity, they attach to service of the deity. They're saying that even if there is a very simple man in Mayapur, we'll just get married to him. We'll live our whole life in a very simple way. But we cannot go out of So anybody can live following the rules and regulations of Varnashram in any place. Okay. Like, for example, even in Pune, they can live like that. It's not that it's not possible. They can live like that. But to live like that means to live a very simple life. So the man and woman should agree for it. If they agree, then they can live. So principles can be applied everywhere. Details cannot be applied. That's the point. But it's not so easy topic. It requires a lot of discussion. When it is only concerning brahmacharis and grahastas and sannyasis, it is easy. The moment you take vanaprastha, it becomes very complicated because they are neither here nor there. So it requires discussion, it requires debate, but it's not impossible to resolve. It can be resolved. Hope all of you will do it. Okay, please read.
Big political leaders might be able to conquer equally powerful political enemies, but unfortunately, they cannot subdue their strong senses. The enemies that always accompany them, not being able to conquer these nearby enemies, they simply try to conquer other enemies, and ultimately they die in the struggle for existence.
So they may say that I have conquered him, I have conquered that person, this person, but they are not able to conquer their own senses. Okay, please read.
Sometimes the living entity in the forest of material existence takes shelter of creepers and desires to hear the chirping of birds in those creepers. Being afraid of roaring lions in the forest, he makes friends with cranes, herons, and vultures. In the forest of material world, there are many animals and birds, trees, and creepers. Sometimes the living entity wants to take shelter of the creepers. In other words, he wants to be happy by being embraced by the creeper-like arms of his wife. Within the creepers, there are many chirping birds. This indicates that he wants to satisfy himself by hearing the sweet voice of his wife. In old age, however, he sometimes becomes afraid of imminent death, which is compared to a roaring lion. To be saved from the hands of Hari, the lion of death, one must take shelter of the Supreme Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
So instead of that, what he does, he simply takes the shelter of some bogus Swami, bogus Yogi, bogus Ananda, this Ananda, that Ananda, and then that fellow exploits him more. Instead of he having sex with his wife, the Swami has sex with his wife. All sorts of nonsense happens. And then they are compared to all this herons and vultures and kind of these birds.
Later, he sometimes takes shelter of so-called gurus and sadhus who are like cranes, herons, and vultures. Thus, he cheated both ways by not taking shelter of the Supreme Lord.
So he didn't take shelter of the Supreme Lord, but he took shelter of criminals and rogues who are posing themselves as spiritualists. And in India, it is very, very common. You see how many of these Swamis are there inside the jail, you see. All of them have big, big following. Even today, even inside the jail, they have a big, big following. There's one fellow called Ram Rahim Baba. Ram Rahim Baba. He has so many millions of followers. His organization is called Dera Sacha Sauda. DSS. He's in Punjab. And he's such a saintly person that he was living in a cave. He was living in a cave. And when police went to see the cave, that is actually a 5-star hotel. Only the name of the 5-star hotel was Gufa. What is the name of it? Gufa, cave. But he was living in such a luxurious 5-star accommodation. And he really had a cave. Really had a cave. And that cave was going from his 5-star accommodation to the Brahmacharini ashram. Going from the 5-star accommodation to where? Brahmacharini ashram. He had a Brahmacharini ashram. So every night one Brahmacharini will come as an offering to him. Fellow is in jail. Recently he came in parole also. Then there is another guy, Asharam Bapu. What Bapu? Asharam Bapu. and he is also in jail. He has so much exploitation of young children, young girls, so much exploitation. And there is one grandfather for all of them. He's in South India. His name is called Nityananda. What is his name? His name is called Nityananda. These fellows are all idiots. They are in jail. That fellow made a country of his own called Kailasa. What he has done? He has made a country of his own called Kailasa. And he is living there. He is proclaiming the world first Hindu country, Kailasa. Greatest criminal, so intelligent criminal. And he calls himself Lord Shiva. Another fellow is there. Somehow the South Indian Swamis are very, very intelligent. They don't go to jail. All these bogus South Indian Swamis are very, very intelligent. They don't go to jail. These North Indian Swamis, they are not so intelligent. They go to jail. So these North Indian Swamis should get training from South Indian Swamis that how to be bogus and not go to jail. Okay, please read.
Being cheated by them, the living entity in the forest of material world tries to give up the association of these so-called yogis, swamis, and incarnations, and come to the association of real devotees. But due to misfortune, he cannot follow the instructions of the spiritual master or advanced devotees. Therefore, he gives up their company and again returns to the association of monkeys who are simply interested in sense gratification and women. He derives satisfaction by associating with sense gratifiers and enjoying sex and intoxication. In this way, he spoils life simply by indulging in sex and intoxication. Looking into the faces of other sense gratifiers, he becomes forgetful and thus approaches death.
So these monkeys, they are compared to the people who are simply jumping from sex and intoxication.
He therefore gives up the company of devotees and goes to associate with similar people who are simply interested in sex and intoxication. Those who are so-called spiritualists are compared to monkeys. Outwardly, monkeys sometimes resemble sadhus because they live naked in the forest and pick fruits, but their only desire is to keep many female monkeys and enjoy sex lives. Sometimes so-called spiritualists seeking a spiritual life come to associate with Krishna conscious devotees, but they cannot execute the regulative principles or follow the path of spiritual life. Consequently, they leave the association with devotees and go to associate with sex gratifiers, who are compared to monkeys. Again, they revive their sex and intoxication, and looking at one another's face, they are thus satisfied. In this way, they pass their lives up to the point of death.
So they get cheated by Sai Baba, that Baba, this Baba, and somehow if they come to Krishna consciousness also, they cannot sustain. And then they run back to Sai Baba. And then they want to die. Well, very practically these things happen. Okay.
When the living entity becomes exactly like a monkey, jumping from one branch to another, he remains in the tree of household life without any profit but sex. Thus, he is kicked by his wife just like he has. Unable to gain release, he remains helplessly in that position. Sometimes he falls victim to an incurable disease, which is like falling into a mountain cave. He becomes afraid of death, which is like the elephant in the back of that cave, and he remains stranded, grasping at the twigs and branches of a creeper.
So,
O killer of enemies, Maharaj Rahugana. If the conditioned soul somehow or other gets out of his dangerous position, he again returns to his home to enjoy sex life. For that is the way of attachment. Thus, under the spell of the Lord's material energy, he continues to loiter in the forest of material existence. He does not discover his real interest, even at the point of death.
So sometimes these people, they come through this materialistic people, they go through some very severe disease, some cancer or some heart problem. They get their heart cut, they have open heart surgery and that and this, and they go through very severe treatment. Then they come out successfully from the treatment, and they don't think that, life is so fragile. They don't think. They simply go back to their materialistic ways. They don't think that, oh, I was suffering so much. I could die anytime. They don't think all these things.
My dear King Rahugana, you are also a victim of the external energy, being situated on the path of attraction to material pleasure. So that you may become an equal friend to all living entities, I now advise you to give up your kingly position and the rod of which you punish criminals. Give up attraction to sense objects and take up the sword of knowledge, sharpened by devotional service. Then you will be able to cut the hard knot of illusory energy and cross to the other side of ocean of nescience.
So one should give up all their upadhis and simply surrender. Okay.
King Rahugana said, if birth as a human being is the best of all, even birth among the demigods in the heavenly planet is not as glorious as the birth as a human being on this earth. What is the use? Gone.
What is the use of the exalted position of a demigod in the heavenly planet? Due to profuse material comforts, there is no possibility of associating with devotees. Money and woman can be fully utilized in the service of the Lord, and one who can utilize them in this way becomes freed from material bondage. This is what we said in the very beginning. It is not at all wonderful that simply by being covered by the dust of your lotus feet, one immediately attains the platform of pure devotional service to Adokshaja, which is not available even to the great demigods like Brahma. By associating with you just for a moment, now I am freed from all argument, false prestige, and lack of discrimination, which are the roots of entanglement in the material world. Now I am free from all these problems. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the great personalities, whether they walk on the earth's surface as children, young boys, avadutas, or great brahmanas. Even if they are hidden under the different disguises, I offer my respects to all of them. By their mercy, may there be good fortune in the royal dynasties who are always offending them. So, now Sukadeva Goswami is speaking. Srila Sukadeva Goswami continued, my dear king, O son of Mother Uttara, please listen to this carefully. There were some waves of dissatisfaction in the mind of Jadabharata due to his being insulted by King Raghugana. You see, Jadabharata did get disturbed. Mind is so powerful that Jadabharata, who did not care for death when the dacoits were trying to kill him, he did not care for all the insult which was offered to him by his brothers and so many others. He did not care. But when a king who is much smaller in stature than him, he was ready to carry his palanquin. He was not insulted by that. But when that king spoke insulting words, Jadabharata did get disturbed. But this time he was extremely careful. This time he was extremely careful. Extremely careful. So, very carefully, he told Raghugana, what you are doing is wrong. But then he also told him, if you cannot understand this, I will carry your palanquin. If you remember, in the beginning, when he spoke to Raghugana, he told him, what you are doing is wrong. You try to understand this. But if you cannot understand this, and if you still think that I should carry your palanquin, I will carry your palanquin. So this time, he was not going to be cheated. He was cheated once. And second time, his mind tried to cheat him. But he was very careful. He was very careful. So this is a big lesson. That mind is so powerful that even if we very, very diligently try to control the mind, and if we diligently try not to get trapped by mind, still the mind has the ability to disturb. So no one should take the mind for granted. No one should take the mind for granted. Who made him carry his palanquin. But Jadabharata neglected this. You see, Jadabharata neglected this, and his heart became calm and quiet like an ocean. Although King Raghugana had insulted him, he was a great Paramahamsa. Being a Vaishnava, he was naturally very kind-hearted. And therefore, he told the king about the constitutional position of the soul. But then, he then forgot the insult because the king pitifully begged pardon at his lotus feet. After this, he began to wander all over the world just as before. Okay, read you can read.
Hare Krishna.
Due to the material body, his senses were certainly agitated when he was insulted by King Raghugana. But later, due to king's humble submission, Jadabharata excused him. It is the duty of everyone desiring to return back home, back to Godhead, to become submissive like King Raghugana and beg pardon of Vaishnava, one who may have offended. After receiving lessons from the great devotee Jadabharata, King Raghugana of the state of Savira became completely aware of his constitutional position of the soul. Thus, he gave up the bodily conception completely. My dear king, whoever takes shelter of the servant of the Lord is certainly glorified because he can without difficulty give up the bodily conception. King Parikshit told Sukadeva Goswami, my dear Lord, O great devotee sage, you are omniscient. You have very nicely described the position of the conditioned soul who is compared to a merchant in the forest. From these instructions, intelligent men can understand that the senses of a person in the bodily conception of life are like rogues and thieves in that forest, and one's wife and children are like jackals and other ferocious animals. However, it is not very easy for unintelligent to understand the purport of this story because it is difficult to extricate the exact meaning from this allegory. Therefore, I therefore request your holiness to give me the direct meaning. So, out of mercy for those people who are very foolish, who cannot understand the complete philosophical import behind this allegory, here Parikshit himself acts like a foolish person, and he asked this question just like today morning in the class. Prabhupada is explaining that on behalf of foolish people, Arjuna is asking this question. Arjuna knows that Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead, but on behalf of foolish people, Prabhupada is saying foolish people like us in the lecture. Prabhupada is also including himself, even though he was a great personality. He is saying, in order to make foolish people like us understand that Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead, Arjuna asked, Aparam bhavato janma, param janma vivasvataha. So same way, here, in order to enlighten foolish people, ordinary people who cannot understand the full import of this allegory, here Maharaja Parikshit, he asked complete explanation from Sukadeva Goswami. Of course, in the purports, Prabhupada has explained the complete explanation, but the same thing Sukadeva Goswami is going to explain. We'll just read the translations. And,
Hare Krishna.
yeah.
Okay, why this time Jadabharata got disturbed? Is there was a Lord arrangement like he will speak with Raghuna?
Of course, everything is Lord's arrangement. It's not
Or like he was like he remembered that he was also king.
That's the reason. Actually, see what happens. When you are expecting some insult from somebody, then it becomes easy to digest it. When you're ready for it, it becomes easy to digest it. When you're not ready for it, and when it really comes from someone whom you can so much relate to, then it becomes very difficult to digest. So that's why mind is very, very powerful. It can disturb us. Even if you are a man of determination, it can disturb us. Like Jadabharata is actually a man of determination. He was so determined, but still he had to speak. But when he spoke very carefully. He spoke in such a way that it is very instructive to Raghugana, but at the same time, it is also very instructive to himself. He did not speak whimsically. He spoke very carefully. So that's what he did. So therefore, we should also be very careful. We cannot take mind for granted. In the previous chapter, where the activities of Rishabhadev is explained, there it is Sukadev Goswami tells Parikshit that due to Rishabhadev's practice of mystic yoga, all the 8 type of opulences appeared in front of him, but Rishabhadev did not accept them. Okay, so then at that time Parikshit is asking question to Sukadev Goswami that why did Rishabhadev not accept them? He could have accepted them, he could have utilized them in Krishna's service. So that time Sukadev Goswami gives a reply. He says that the mind should never be trusted. Like a hunter never trusts a captured animal, and he always keeps it into the cage. And a prostitute can never be trusted. So same way, a mind can never be trusted, he says. And the expansion of that principle is the pastime of Jadabharata. That principle, what Sukadeva Goswami is saying, that mind can never be trusted, it's always be kept under control. That principle actually expands at the pastime of Jadabharata. Because Jadabharat's pastime is directly a manifestation of that principle. That how one should never trust the mind. A yogi should never trust his mind. Mind should be made friend, but a friend who is subordinate and never to be trusted. Okay.
Yeah, I can read from here.
You can read from here.
Yeah.
Okay, please read that. Thank you.
When King Parikshit asked Shukdev Goswami about the direct meaning of the material forest, Shukdev Goswami replied as follows: My dear king, a man belonging to the mercantile community, Vanik, is always interested in earning money. Sometimes he enters a forest to acquire some cheap commodities like wood and earth and sell them in the city at good prices. Similarly, the conditioned soul, being greedy, enters this material world for some material profit. Gradually, he enters the deepest part of the forest, not really knowing how to get out. Having entered the material world, the pure soul becomes conditioned by the material atmosphere, which is created by the external energy under the control of Lord Vishnu. Thus, the living entity comes under the control of the external energy, Devi Maya. Living independently and bewildered in the forest, he does not attain the association of devotees who are always engaged in the service of the Lord. Once in the bodily conception, he gets different types of bodies, one after the other, under the influence of material energy and impelled by the modes of material nature, Sattvagun, Rajogun, and Tamagun. In this way, the conditioned soul goes sometimes to the heavenly planets, sometimes to the earthly planets, and sometimes to the lower planets and lower species.
The same thing we saw in today morning's lecture. Udvan Gattanti Sattvasto, Madhyam Tishtanti, Rajasaha, Adho Gachanti, Tamas.
Thus, he suffers continuously due to different types of bodies. These sufferings and pains are sometimes mixed. Sometimes they are very severe and sometimes they are not. These bodily conditions are acquired due to the conditioned soul
बोल भक्ति प्रभु.
Krishna.
भक्ति प्रभु
Yes, Prabhu.
पता करिए ना क्या वो चल गया क्या.
Antadev Prabhu is
Action.
there. Antadev Prabhu.
activities in previous lives, the conditioned soul attains material facilities in this life. But when they are finished, he takes shelter of wealth and riches, which cannot help him in this life or the next. Because of this, he approaches the living dead who possess these things. Such people are compared to impure trees, creepers, and poisonous wells.
Hmm. If one gets more than is needed, the surplus should be fully engaged in Lord's service. This will make the conditioned soul and the world and Krishna happy. And this is the aim of life. Yeah. Let me just put some. Okay, please read the next. Hmm? What is that? Yeah. Yeah. A person who is actually living Virat of Krishna consciousness is just living dead. And there are many living dead in the name of consultants. What they are called as? Consultants. They are called as so wealth management consultant. Huh? So he will say, oh, how much wealth you have? Oh, I have 1,000 rupees. If you invest 1,000 rupees continuously for 10 years, you can become a crorepati. You can become what? Crorepati. You invest your money in this scheme. Yeah, don't. You invest your money in this scheme or that scheme, or I will tell you how to make your money best return for least investment. Best return for what? Least investment. And people become very much interested. Oh, I can get pots of money. When I was in Dubai, one fellow came to me, consultant, and he said that I can show you ways to multiply your money into so much in another 10 years. I said, I'm not interested. I'm not interested. I'm going to retire in 5 years. Oh, you have 5 years? Consider this possibility. How about retiring in 5 years with pots full of money? How about retiring 5 years with pots full of money? I said, I considered this possibility and rejected it. Thank you very much. Please go from me. Don't waste your time and my time. But these are the living dead. They give you many ideas how you can improve your sense gratification in this material world. They're fake. All these people are fake. No, they may give, but simply having money will not give you happiness. So the fellow who is not giving is a big fake. The fellow who is giving is also fake only, because he is telling you that by having money you can have happiness. By having money you can have happiness. But if you little bit see his own personal life, he himself will be facing so many miseries. Huh? But he is selling happiness to you. He is selling happiness to you. They're all fake people. Okay.
Sometimes, to mitigate distresses in this forest of the material world, the conditioned soul receives cheap blessings from atheists. He then loses all intelligence in their association. This is exactly like jumping in a shallow river. As a result, one simply breaks his head. He is not able to mitigate his suffering from the heat, and in both ways he suffers. The misguided conditioned soul also approaches so-called sadhus and swamis who preach against the principle of the Vedas. He does not receive benefit from them, either in the present or in the future.
So they rape his children, they rape his wife, they take away all his money in the name of spirituality, and then they put him on the road. So this is what happens. This is what happens. And he goes to them for relief. They promise him relief, but they make him more miserable. Make him more miserable. So,
If being able to manufacture gold is a criterion for becoming God, then why not accept Krishna, the proprietor of the entire universe, wherein there are countless tons of gold?
yeah. See, Prabhupada gives simple argument. You are willing to accept one fellow who will bring little small amount of gold from his mouth as God. You say, and gold will come. He say, prasad for you. Oh, God. He vomited gold. Papa say, okay, Krishna has given so much gold. Why not accept him as God?
In this material world, when the conditioned soul cannot arrange for his own maintenance, despite exploiting others, he tries to exploit his own father or son, taking away that relative's possessions, although they may be very insignificant. If he cannot acquire things from his father, son, or other relatives, he is prepared to give them all kinds of trouble.
How many times you have heard story that when father died and the sons are fighting for property, keeping the dead body of the father? Father died. Father died. Dead body is there. And the sons are fighting for who will take what property. I have seen this with my own eyes. Father's dead body is lying. Sons are busy fighting. Oh, I cannot give you this property. I cannot give you that property. I will see you in court. I will take you to court. I will not allow you to burn the father's body. I will not allow you to touch the father's body. Fighting. Fighting. Okay.
In this world, family life is exactly like a blazing fire in the forest. There is not the least happiness, and gradually one becomes more and more implicated in unhappiness. In household life, there is nothing favorable for perpetual happiness. Being implicated in the home life, the conditioned soul is burned by the fire of lamentation. Sometimes he condemns himself as being very unfortunate, and sometimes he claims that he suffers because he performed no pious activities in his previous life. No one goes to set fire to the forest, yet the fire takes place. Similarly, everyone wants to be happy in the material world, but the miserable conditions of material life simply increase.
Yeah. So the man and woman, I told, they get married because they want to be happy. But the next day they are fighting. They don't even give gap. Today they are married, tomorrow they are fighting. Till yesterday they are loving each other. Till yesterday they are loving each other. The man is talking to woman till 12 o'clock in the night. And the woman is talking to man till 12 o'clock in the night. They cannot stop talking to each other. Arey, why you talking till 12 o'clock? Why don't you sleep at 9 o'clock? Get up for Bangalore and go. No, I have to talk to her. Okay. What happened after marriage? Next day, both of them are sending message. Prabhu, we need some guidance. We are fighting with each other. Arey, till yesterday you are loving, today you are fighting. What is the difference? We got married. We got married. So, the idea is to remain happy, but somehow or other misery comes.
Government men are always like carnivorous demons like Rakshasas, man-eaters. Sometimes these government men turn against the conditioned soul and take away all accumulated wealth. Being bereft of his life's reserved wealth, the conditioned soul loses all enthusiasm. Indeed, it is as though he loses his life.
Yeah.
Sometimes the conditioned soul imagines that his father or grandfather has again come in the form of his son or grandson. In this way, he feels the happiness one sometimes feels in a dream. And the conditioned soul sometimes takes pleasure in such mental concoctions.
So you will say that, oh, my father always used to talk like this. This fellow is also talking like my father only.
In household life, one is ordered to execute many yajnas and fruitive activities, especially the Vivaha Yajna, the marriage ceremony for sons and daughters, and the sacred thread ceremony. These are all the duties of a grahastha, and they are very extensive and troublesome to execute. They are compared to a big hill over which one must cross when one is attached to material activities. A person desiring to cross over these ritualistic ceremonies certainly feels pains like the piercing of thorns and pebbles endured by one attempting to climb a hill. Thus, the conditioned soul suffers unlimitedly.
Hmm.
Sometimes, due to bodily hunger and thirst, the conditioned soul becomes so disturbed that he loses his patience and becomes angry with his own beloved sons, daughters, and wife. Thus, being unkind to them, he suffers all the more.
He becomes angry with the child and then he becomes angry on himself also.
Shukdev Goswami continued speaking to Maharaj Parikshit, my dear king, sleep is exactly like a python. Those who wander in the forest of material life are always devoured by the python of sleep. Being bitten by this python, they always remain in the darkness of ignorance. They are like dead bodies thrown in a distant forest. Thus, the conditioned souls cannot understand what is going on in life.
Yeah, they want to sleep late in the night and then keep sleeping till the middle of the morning. All materialistic people are very fond of this, that they want to sleep late in the night and keep sleeping till in the middle of the morning. And they very proudly say, oh, today I got up at 11 o'clock only. And now we are going to have brunch. So they're not considering that they're actually wasting the most prime time, which is early in the morning, which is meant for fruitive activity, which is meant for Krishna conscious activities.
In the forest of the material world, the conditioned soul is sometimes bitten by envious enemies, which are compared to serpents and other creatures. Through the tricks of the enemy, the conditioned soul falls from his prestigious position. Being anxious, he cannot even sleep properly. He thus becomes more and more unhappy, and he gradually loses his intelligence and consciousness. In that state, he becomes almost perpetually like a blind man who has fallen into a dark well of ignorance.
Hmm.
The conditioned soul is sometimes attracted to the little happiness derived from sense gratification. Thus, he has illicit sex or steals another's property. At such a time, he may be arrested by the government or chastised by the woman's husband or protector. Thus, simply for a little material satisfaction, he falls into a hellish condition and is put into jail for rape, kidnapping, theft, and so forth. Meat eating and intoxication excite the senses more and more, and the conditioned soul falls victim to women. In order to keep women, money is required, and to acquire money, one begs, borrows, or steals. Many devotees fall down due to illicit sex. They may steal money and even fall down from the highly honored renounced order. Then, for a livelihood, they accept menial services and become beggars.
So Prabhupada is warning that this is not only for non-devotees.
Sex is full of
Devotees
dangers.
can become afflicted by such desires.
Sex is full of dangers even for those who are addicted to household life. Whether one has a license for sex or not, there is great trouble. Learned scholars and transcendentalists therefore condemn the materialistic path of fruitive activity because it is the original source and breeding ground for material miseries both in this life and in the next. Stealing or cheating another person out of his money, the conditioned soul somehow or other keeps it in his possession and escapes punishment. Then another man, named Devadatta, cheats him and takes the money away. Similarly, another man named Vishnu Mitra steals the money from Devadatta and takes it away. In any case, the money does not stay in one place. It passes from one hand to another. Ultimately, no one can enjoy the money, and it remains the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yeah. So everyone tries to enjoy, but no one is able to enjoy.
This is the point of the Krishna consciousness movement. We worship Lakshmi, Radharani, along with Narayan, Krishna. We collect money from various sources, but that money does not belong to anyone but Radha and Krishna, Lakshmi Narayan. If money is utilized in the service of Lakshmi Narayan, the devotee automatically lives in an opulent way.
So this is what is our philosophy. Devadatta and Vishnumitra, they're imaginary names. Yeah.
Being unable to protect himself from the threefold miseries of material existence, the conditioned soul becomes very morose and lives a life of lamentation. These threefold miseries are miseries suffered by mental calamity at the hands of the demigods, such as freezing wind and scorching heat, miseries offered by other living entities, and miseries arising from the mind and body themselves. As far as transactions with money are concerned, if one person cheats another by a farthing or less, they become enemies.
Mm.
A philosopher accuses an economist of being a cheater, and an economist may accuse a philosopher of being a cheater when he comes in contact with money. The scientists are cheaters because they present so many bogus things in the names of science. The best process is to take the advice and instructions of Sri Krishna or his bona fide representative. In this way, one can be happy in this life and the next.
Yeah. So money, when we handle, we have to be very careful because money is very, very attractive.
In this
Money is very
materialistic life,
attractive. It can instantly give sense gratification. So we should be very careful when we handle money.
there are many difficulties, as I have just mentioned, and all of these are insurmountable. In addition, there are difficulties arising from so-called happiness, distress, attachment, hate, fear, false prestige, illusion, madness, lamentation, bewilderment, greed, envy, enmity, insult, hunger, thirst, tribulation, disease, birth, old age, and death. All these combined together to give the materialistic conditioned soul nothing but misery. The conditioned soul has to accept all these conditions simply to enjoy sense gratification in this world. They have attained the human form in order to get released from material bondage, but instead of doing so, they become further embarrassed amid the miserable material conditions. Therefore, they are Naradhamas, the lowest of men.
So when Sukadeva Goswami gives a full account like this, where he assembles everything and then he presents, then we have to utilize this opportunity to think that should we really act in such a way that we will get one more body?
Sometimes the conditioned soul is attracted by illusion personified, his wife or girlfriend, and becomes eager to be embraced by a woman. Thus, he loses his intelligence as well as the knowledge of life's goal. At that time, no longer attempting spiritual cultivation, he becomes overly attached to his wife or girlfriend and tries to provide her with a suitable apartment. Again, he becomes very busy under the shelter of that home and is captivated by the talks, glances, and activities of his wife and children. In this way, he loses his Krishna consciousness and throws himself in the dense darkness of material existence. When the conditioned soul is embraced by his beloved wife, he forgets everything about Krishna consciousness.
So therefore, we should be very careful.
The personal weapon used by Lord Krishna, the disc, is called Hari Chakra, the disc of Hari. This chakra is the wheel of time. It expands from the beginning of the atoms up to the time of Brahma's death, and it controls all activities. It is always revolving and spending the lives of the living entities, from Lord Brahma down to an insignificant blade of grass. Thus, one changes from infancy to childhood to youth to maturity, and thus one approaches the end of life. It is impossible to check this wheel of time. This wheel is very exacting because it is the personal weapon of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes the conditioned soul, fearing the approach of death, wants to worship someone who can save him from the imminent danger. Yet he does not care for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose weapon is the indefatigable time factor. The conditioned soul instead takes shelter of a man-made god described in unauthorized scriptures. Such gods are like buzzards, vultures, herons, and crows. Vedic scriptures do not refer to them. Imminent death is like the attack of a lion, and neither vultures, buzzards, crows, or nor herons can save one from such an attack. One who takes shelter of an unauthorized man-made gods cannot be saved from the clutches of death. The Krishna consciousness movement is trying its best to bring people back to Krishna consciousness in its pure form. But the Pashandis and atheists who are cheaters are so numerous that sometimes we become perplexed and wonder how to push this movement forward. In any case, we cannot accept the unauthorized ways of so-called incarnations, gods, cheaters, and bluffers who are described here as crows, vultures, buzzards, and herons. The pseudo-swamis, yogis, and incarnations who do not believe in the Supreme Personality of Godhead are known as Pashandis. They themselves are fallen and cheated because they do not know the real path of spiritual advancement. And whoever goes to them is certainly cheated in his turn. When one is thus cheated, he sometimes takes shelter of the real followers of Vedic principles, Brahmanas, or those in Krishna consciousness, who teach everyone how to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead according to the Vedic rituals. However, being unable to stick to these principles, these rascals again fall down and take shelter among Shudras, who are very expert in making arrangements for sex indulgence. Sex is very prominent among animals like monkeys, and such people who are enlivened by sex may be called descendants of monkeys. Those who come to the human form through the quality of Sattva Guna were cows in their last animal incarnation. Those who come to the human form through the quality of Rajoguna were lions in their last animal incarnation. And those who come to the human form through the quality of Tamoguna were monkeys in their last animal incarnation.
So, this is the only place where they accept that humans came from monkeys.
In the Krishna consciousness movement, these monkey disciples, being unable to follow the strict regular principles, sometimes fall down and try to form societies based on sex. This is proof that such people are descendants of monkeys, as confirmed by Darwin. In this verse, it is therefore clearly stated, Yatha Vanara Jatehe.
So, this is one place where Prabhupada supports Darwin. But not in the way Darwin presents it, but it's more like an evolutionary process of the soul.
In this way, the descendants of the monkeys intermingle with each other, and they are generally known as Shudras. Without hesitating, they live and move freely, not knowing the goal of life. They are captivated simply by seeing the faces of one another, which remind them of sense gratification. They are always engaged in material activities known as Gramya Karma, and they work hard for material benefit. Thus, they forget completely that one day their small lifespans will be finished and they will be degraded in the evolutionary cycle. Materialistic people are sometimes called Shudras or descendants of monkeys due to their monkey-like intelligence. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, this Krishna consciousness movement, is trying to elevate Shudras to the Brahmana platform so that they will know the real goal of life. This Krishna consciousness movement is trying to bring intelligent human beings to the platform of devotional service. Instead of wasting time trying to attain a better position in material life, one should simply endeavor to return home back to Godhead.
So,
one simply has to follow the regular principles, act like a Brahmana, chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and read Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. In this way, one purifies himself of the baser material modes, Tamoguna and Rajoguna, and becoming freed from the greed of these modes can attain complete peace of mind. In this way, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead and one's relationship with Him, and thus be promoted to the highest perfection, Siddhim Paramam Gataha. Just as a monkey jumps from one tree to another, the conditioned soul jumps from one body to another. As the monkey is ultimately captured by the hunter and is unable to get out of captivity, The conditioned soul, being captivated by momentary sex pleasure, becomes attached to the different types of bodies and is engaged in family life. Family life affords the conditioned soul a festival of momentary sex pleasure, and thus he is completely unable to get out of the material clutches. In this way, the monkey's business is to jump from one tree to another and enjoy sex with his wives. The conditioned soul is doing the same thing, transmigrating from one body to another and engaging in sex. He thus completely forgets how to become free from the clutches of material engagement. Sometimes the monkey is captured by a hunter who sells its body to doctors so that its glands can be removed for the benefit of another monkey. All this is going on in the name of economic development and improved sex life. In this material world, when the conditioned soul forgets his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and does not care for Krishna consciousness, he simply engages in different types of mischievous and sinful activities. He is then subjected to the threefold miseries, and out of fear of the elephant of death, he falls into the darkness found in the mountain cave. The conditioned soul suffers many miserable bodily conditions, such as being affected by severe cold and strong winds. He also suffers due to the activities of other living beings and due to natural disturbances. When he is unable to counteract them and has to remain in a miserable condition, he naturally becomes very morose because he wants to enjoy material facilities. Sometimes conditioned souls exchange money, but in due course of time, enmity arises because of cheating. Although there may be tiny profit, the conditioned souls cease to be friends and become enemies. Sometimes this enmity is created between the conditioned soul and the father or spiritual master. Unless one is firmly fixed in the regulative principles, one may perform mischievous acts even if one is a member of the Krishna conscious movement. We therefore advise our disciples to strictly follow the regulative principles. Otherwise, the most important movement for the upliftment of humanity will be hampered due to the dissension among its members. Those who are serious about pushing forward this Krishna consciousness movement should remember this and strictly follow the regular principles so that their minds will not be disturbed.
So Prabhupada is saying that, warning us that this monkey business is not only to the conditioned souls, it may also creep into devotee life, into Krishna conscious movement. So we have to be very careful. Sometimes we read this type of instructions and then we may think that, oh, these instructions are not for us, these are for materialistic people. Or a brahmachari may think, oh, these are all for householders, this is all for them, let them do what they are doing. But here Prabhupada is giving very strong warning that anyone may perform such mischievous acts, even if one is a member from the Krishna conscious movement. And if we study the history of Krishna conscious movement, we will see that time and again, some activity like this happens. Time and again, some activity like this happens. The shackle of sex life is so strong that even if a man tries to stay away from sex life, sometimes he becomes victim of sex life. That's why, if you see the 9th canto, which is entitled Liberation, what is happening in 9th canto? If you have read 9th canto, you'll see that great personalities, left, right, and center, are falling down to sex desire. So why it is explained in 9th canto so much about sex life and fall down and sex desire? Because that is a single challenge for the conditioned soul from being liberated. And the personalities who are falling down, they are not like some crazy guy who is some stupid guy. The personalities who are falling down, they're all great personalities like Brahaspati, Yayati, great personalities. They're not some simple personalities. So, 9th canto is warning us, the same warning Prabhupada is giving us here, that the shackle of sex life, it should not be taken for, should not be taken very lightly. We should be very strict in following the regulative principles. If we are not strict in following the regulative principles, then there will be dissension amongst the members of the Krishna conscious movement. Prabhupada is saying that this important movement for the upliftment of humanity will be hampered due to dissension amongst his members. So, we should take this very seriously because it's coming directly from our founder Acharya. Not take it very lightly.
Sometimes having no money, the conditioned soul does not get sufficient accommodations. Sometimes he doesn't even have a place to sit, nor does he have the other necessities. In other words, he falls into scarcity, and at that time, when he is unable to secure the necessities by fair means, he decides to seize the property of other unfairly. When he cannot get the things he wants, he simply receives insults from others and thus becomes very morose. Nature is very cruel. She does not excuse anyone. When people do not care for nature, they commit all kinds of sinful activities and consequently they have to suffer.
Yeah. So we have to be very careful with this because Krishna consciousness means being conscious of everything. Sometimes as devotees, we are Krishna conscious, but we are not conscious of everything. We have habits which can actually pollute the earth. We don't show so much, we are not so much conscious about our lifestyle. We're not so much conscious about whether we are living some responsible way. We are doing things in a responsible way. We are not so much conscious about these things. We think that, oh, I am devotee, I can live any way I want. But we are devotee means then we have to be conscious of everything. We have to be conscious, then we can become Krishna conscious. We have to be conscious of everything. So therefore, a devotee by nature is very sensitive to how he deals with the material nature. Because she is Durga, she is mother. So he has to deal with her properly. Same way, how we are dealing with Mother Earth. She is Krishna's wife. So this way she is also our mother. How we are dealing with Mother Earth, how we are dealing with nature. These are all important things. We should be naturally aware of these things. Naturally aware of these things. Huh? Yeah, but sometimes, we as devotees, we're very responsible. I see devotees using plastic left, right, and center. They don't care so much. They use plastic plates, they just throw it. We are not conscious that we are not save earth people. Okay, we are not save environment, save earth people. Because we know that environment is meant to save us. We are not meant to save the environment. Mother Earth, she is Datri. She is meant to maintain us. We are not meant to maintain her. But we should be respectful to her. We should be respectful to her. That's why Prabhupada is saying we should be very immaculately clean. We should keep everything nicely. Why he is saying all these things? We should be very responsible. These are all ways of showing gratitude to Mother Earth, to nature. So, the nature of a Brahmana is that when he leaves a place, the place is more cleaner than the place when he came. That's the nature of Brahmana. But we should also try to follow that lifestyle. We cannot say, oh, I am devotee, so I can do whatever I want. I can leave the whole place dirty and come. I can keep the whole place dirty. It doesn't matter because I am devotee. We cannot be like this. We cannot be like this. We should be responsible in our dealings also.
Although people may be enemies, in order to fulfill their desires again and again, they sometimes get married. Unfortunately, these marriages do not last very long, and the people involved are separated again by divorce or other means. Even in Krishna movement, even in Krishna consciousness, separation and enmity takes place due to the prominence of material propensities.
Yeah, due to the prominence of
Material
propensities. So if we give room for material propensities in Krishna consciousness, this is what we are talking very elaborately yesterday, that we should not become victim of our mind in practice of Krishna consciousness. If we give room to simply material propensities in Krishna consciousness, then everything will get spoiled. Everything will get spoiled.
The path of this material world is full of material miseries, and various troubles disturb the conditioned souls. Sometimes he loses and sometimes he gains. In either case, the path is full of danger. Sometimes the conditioned soul is separated from his father by death or other circumstances. Leaving him aside, he gradually becomes attached to others, such as his children. In this way, the conditioned soul is sometimes illusioned and afraid. Sometimes he cries loudly out of fear. Sometimes he is happy, maintaining his family. And sometimes he's overjoyed and sings melodiously. In this way, he becomes entangled and forgets his separation from the Supreme Personality of Godhead since time immemorial. Thus, he traverses the dangerous path of material existence, and on this path, he is not at all happy. Those who are self-realized simply take the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in order to get out of this dangerous material existence. Without accepting the devotional path, one cannot get out of the clutches of material existence. The conclusion is that no one can be happy in material life. One must take to Krishna consciousness. By thoroughly analyzing the materialistic way of life, any sane man can understand that there is not the least happiness in this material world.
Yes, sir. Translation we read that due to enmity and they come together and again get separated, something like that.
Yeah.
Can you give some practical example? Like,
Yeah, it is possible that a person is actually having some enmity with the other person, but for some short-term gain, they actually come together and they try to have some relationship. But then that relationship will not stay for a long time. They will simply separate one more time. Modern politicians are perfect example of this. Like suddenly he is aligned with this party, and then this party will have some so-called philosophy, and then they will go and align with another party which has opposite philosophy, just because they want to win, get some votes and win an election. But when they cannot win the election, then they will break that relationship and then they will start fighting again. That this party is not good, that party is not good. They will start fighting again. So many times we see that modern political parties they're like prostitutes. They have actually no principle. If they can gain some vote, they will do anything. And sometimes the same thing happens with people also. They just make some materialistic calculation. Oh, if I get married to this man, I can be like this, I can be like that. But they get married, but they are seeing that their dream is not coming true. Then they start fighting with that man. Then the woman says, oh, I don't want to live with you. I want separation from you. I want this from you. I want that from you. I've seen this happening with devotees also. They just make some calculation. They make some calculation. And then they think that, oh, I leave this man, I leave that man. Or I leave this woman, I live with that woman. They do this kind of calculations thinking that they can be happy. But ultimately, they will not be happy. If a man leaves a woman and comes to another woman, what is the guarantee that he will not leave that woman also? Same way, if a woman leaves one man and comes to another man, what is the guarantee that she will not leave this man also? She already left one man. Of course, sinful reactions will be there. So this kind of arrangements are destroying Krishna consciousness. But they do it. They do it because they are blinded by sense gratification. And they end up doing something like this. Use and throw policy or use and get thrown policy. We are almost at the end. We have some 5-6 shlokas to read. That's it.
This Krishna consciousness movement is therefore trying to give everyone a chance to associate with saintly people. Therefore, all the members of this Krishna consciousness society must themselves be perfect sadhus in order to give a chance to fallen conditioned souls. This is the best humanitarian work.
Yeah, so we discussed this previously also. The devotee should be Sushila. Sushila.
Saintly persons who are friends to all living entities have a peaceful consciousness. They have controlled their senses and minds, and they easily attain the path of liberation, the path back to Godhead, being unfortunate and attached to the miserable material conditions. A materialistic person cannot associate with them.
So if we cannot associate with Prabhupada, and if we cannot make our life successful, then we are also like this unfortunate materialistic person. Prabhupada is saying that we can go back home, back to Godhead in this lifetime, in this very lifetime itself. In today also Prabhupada is saying the same thing. In this very lifetime, we can go back home, back to Godhead. But if we don't utilize that, having come to Prabhupada's association, having taken into Prabhupada's movement, if we don't utilize the opportunity to become serious in Krishna consciousness, if we're simply victim of mental speculations, then we are also like the same materialistic person who cannot associate with them.
Nonetheless, this Krishna consciousness movement insists that everyone take to this path by adopting the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. The preachers of Krishna consciousness go from door to door to inform people how they can be relieved from the miserable conditions of material life. There were many great saintly kings who were very expert in performing sacrificial rituals and every competent in conquering other kingdoms. Yet, despite their power, they could not attain the loving service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is because those great kings could not even conquer the false consciousness of I am this body and this is my property. Thus, they simply created enmity with rival kings, fought with them, and died without having discharged life's real mission.
So in Bhagavatam itself, you find sometimes so many kings' names. Sometimes one chapter is full of names. And when they lived, they were great kings. Now they are simply names. And then at least these people are fortunate because their name is in Bhagavatam. There are others who are great kings whose name is not even there in Bhagavatam. But when they lived, they were big kings, they were very powerful, they had done so many different type of activities, but their name is not even there in Bhagavatam. Some of them are just names and some of them are not even names. But some of them are so elaborately described. So elaborately described. Like chapters and chapters of description is there about every details of their life. So what is the difference? The difference is that they actually became great devotees and they understood the purpose of life. So if we don't understand the purpose of life, even after coming in the association of devotees, then we were also another name. We are also another name. And at least in Bhagavatam, they are writing the name. And for us, they will not even write the name. We will become another non-written name. Okay.
When the conditioned soul accepts the shelter of the creeper of fruitive activity, he may be elevated by these pious activities to higher planetary systems and thus gain liberation from hellish conditions. But unfortunately, he cannot remain there. After reaping the results of his pious activities, he has to return to the lower planetary systems. In this way, he perpetually goes up and comes down. Having summarized the teachings of Jadbharata, Sukadeva Goswami said, "My dear King Parikshit, the path indicated by Jadbharata is like the path followed by Garuda, the carrier of Lord, and ordinary kings are just like flies. Flies cannot follow the path of Garuda, and to date, none of the great kings and victorious leaders could follow this path of devotional service, not even mentally." While in the prime of life, the great Maharaja Bharat gave up everything because he was fond of serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Uttama Shloka. He gave up his beautiful wife, nice children, great friends, and an enormous empire. Although these things were very difficult to give up, Maharaj Bharat was so exalted that he gave them up just as one give up stool after evacuating. Such was the greatness of his majesty. The name of God is Krishna because he is so attractive that the pure devotee can give up everything within this material world on his behalf.
So now, Sukadeva Goswami is actually encouraging Maharaja Parikshit because Parikshit also gave up everything. Previously in the first canto, the same statement is there about Maharaja Parikshit also. That Maharaja Parikshit, he gave up his wife, his wealth, his treasury, his army, his fame, which is also difficult to give up. So here, Sukadeva Goswami is saying that you're not the only person who has done it. You see this other person who has also done it. And both of you are glorious because you have done the same thing.
A little inattention will retard our devotional service for the time being. Yet any service rendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is never lost.
Yeah, this is also a big lesson we learned from Jada Bharat's pastime, that how the Lord actually protected the consciousness of Maharaja Bharata. Even though he took him through 3 lifetimes, but the Lord nicely protected the consciousness of King Bharata, and ultimately he gave him glorious position.
This Krishna consciousness moment is giving everyone a chance to engage in devotional service for at least some time. A little service will give one an impetus to advance and thus make one's life successful. We are spreading the glories of Krishna by pushing forward. This Krishna consciousness moment, Krishna's reputation 5,000 years after the battle of Kurukshetra is still expanding throughout the world. Every important individual within this world must have heard of Krishna, especially at the present moment. Due to the Krishna consciousness moment, even people who do not like us and want to suppress the moment are also somehow or other chanting Hare Krishna. They say the Hare Krishna people should be chastised. Such foolish people do not realize the true value of this moment. But the mere fact that they want to criticize, it gives them a chance to chant Hare Krishna. And this is its success.
So this is the greatness of Prabhupada, that he actually sees opportunity for everybody, even those who chastises.
Sukadeva Goswami continued, my dear king, the activities of Bharat Maharaj are wonderful. He gave up everything difficult for others to give up. He gave up his kingdom, his wife and his family. His opulence was so great that even the demigods envied it. Yet he gave it up. It was quite befitting a great personality like him to be a great devotee. He could renounce everything because he was so attracted to the beauty, opulence, reputation, knowledge, strength, and renunciation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Krishna is so attractive that one can give up all these desirable things for his sake. Indeed, even liberation is considered insignificant for those whose minds are attracted to the loving service of the Lord.
So now he is actually telling Parikshit that if you also get attracted, then you can also give up all these shackles and you can be fully attracted to Krishna.
Even though in the body of a deer, Maharaj Bharat did not forget the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, when he was giving up the body of a deer, he loudly uttered the following prayers. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is sacrifice personified. He gives the result of ritualistic activity. He is the protector of religious systems, the personification of mystic yoga, the source of all knowledge, the controller of the entire creation, and the super soul in every living entity is the beautiful and attractive. I am quitting this body, offering obeisances unto him and hoping that I may perpetually engage in his transcendental loving service. Uttering this, Maharaj Bharat left his body.
So this is Krishna's protection. So he uttered this prayer in which body? The deer's body. This is Krishna's protection. So Krishna is saying that his devotee will never be perished. That Maharaja Bharat got the body of a deer and that it looks as if he is finished. But you see the type of prayer he is offering in the body of a deer. This is not something which a deer can offer. So Krishna, while it looks as if that he gave some very serious punishment to Maharaja Bharata, but actually the punishment was not serious, because that opportunity to take that body of a deer, it actually brought Bharata so close to Krishna that by Krishna's mercy, even in the body of a deer, he was able to loudly recite these prayers. It's not that he recited these prayers in his consciousness. He very specifically mentioned that he loudly uttered the following prayers. He was able to do this, and he was able to leave his body. So therefore, one who is protected by Krishna, he is never vanquished.
Devotees interested in hearing and chanting Shravanam Kirtanam regularly discuss the pure characteristics of Bharat Maharaj and praise his activities. If one submissively hears and chants about the all auspicious Maharaj Bharata, one's lifespan and material opulences certainly increases. One can become very famous and easily attain promotion to the heavenly planets or attain liberation by merging into the existence of the Lord. Whatever one desires can be attained simply by hearing, chanting, and glorifying the activities of Maharaj Bharata. In this way, one can fulfill all his material and spiritual desires. One does not have to ask anyone else for these things, for simply by studying the life of Maharaj Bharat, one can attain all desirable things.
So this is the Falashruti, very interesting Falashruti, which is there. And Prabhupada actually summarizes the entire forest of material existence again in the purport. So that brings us to this wonderful section of discussions about Maharaja Bharat and his activities as a deer and also as Jadabharata, and then his conversation with King Raghugana. So this pastime, it has many, many lessons. We tried to cover as much as possible in our most disjointed effort to complete this unit. We tried to cover as much as possible. The most important thing to remember, at least 2 points which you want to take away from this important pastime. 2 things which we should remember. One thing is definitely the power of mind and how we should never become victim of mind in our practice of Krishna consciousness. And the second thing which we should remember is the mercy of the Supreme Lord, that how merciful he is and how the Lord can protect a sincere devotee through all circumstances. Through all circumstances. So we have the best master, we have the best acharya, we have our best spiritual master, we have the best God, and we have the best circumstance. We have everything. We have everything. But there is one thing which is standing between us and Krishna. What is that? Mind.
Mind.
We also have the mind. So whether we are going to utilize the mind to re-enter the forest of material existence, or whether we are going to control the mind by the intelligence of the soul and attain the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is the Falashruti, that is the actual Falashruti of studying Maharaj Bharat's pastime. Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bo.
Hare Krishna. So we are very grateful that we got to hear this very, very vital section of Srimad Bhagavatam from His Grace Hari Leela Prabhu, as we have been experiencing over many previous sections also. Prabhu is so deep in his practice and also helps us to learn the principles at depth without compromise from Prabhupada's teachings. And here this Bharat Maharaj section is especially very important for us to deal with the subtleties in where we can get captured against our journey towards back to Godhead. So Prabhu had throat infection also, and still he actually extended himself. He had come to Bombay, and to complete the section, he came personally and gave us his association. So we're very grateful.
I'm
that-
always greedy to come here because I get association. So I come here for not giving association. I come here for getting association from all you great souls. So I'm always greedy to come here. And this
So-
time I was also very fortunate because when I came, this seminars are also going on. So I could collect some little nectar from Padmalochan Prabhu, and I was able to also meet Radhesham Prabhu. So I was most benefited in this.
So
trip.
all the Prabhu has immense responsibilities at Mayapur temple, and he has so much of wisdom he can share with the world, but Prabhu is kindly extending himself for all of us at Pune. So we heartily thank him, and we hope that we practice this very important lessons of this very vital section of Srimad Bhagavatam as he has taught us. Let us thank him, my lovely ones, chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Sai Leela Prabhu ki jai.
Prabhupada ki jai. Bharat Maharaj ki jai. So finally, we have ended this section. We have taken different type of throat medication in the last 3 weeks, and none of the throat medicine is able to control this cough. I have 3 doctors looking after me, and all of them told me, please suffer this cough until it goes on its own. So